All right, guys, first off, as always, good day. So this is the first video for the U.S. history class. This is chapter 1.1. Hopefully you did not miss the first day, but if you did, here's the video for the notes and stuff like I promised. If you're watching this to recap, great. That's amazing. So if you missed the first day of the lectures and stuff like that, you can use just any regular sheet of paper. But if you have the note paper from me, that works as well. But if you don't, a lined sheet of paper works. Okay. All I ask is if you have the lined sheet of paper that on the side you put, warm-up question, notes, midpoint question, last question, so I can see the difference, instead of just one complete mass of just notes and you answering the question. Okay, that way it makes it a little bit easier for me to see and distinguish uh, each section. Okay, so the thing is with this video, the reason why I do this also is that you can go at your own pace, so you aren't hurried up. Now, when you watch this video, it's going to go from one thing to another very quickly. What I would suggest is you pause it every so often, get down your notes. If you need to rehear something, um, then you can always go back to it. You can go at your own pace, in other words. Okay, so don't just let it run off. Take your time, pause it if you have to, go back, things like that. All right, so without further ado, let us begin. All right, so here is your warm-up picture. Um, as you can see, it's right there in front of you. So, first question is this. What do you see? Okay. Also, what is the artist trying to say? Okay, so look at that picture, analyze it, and really think, what is this artist trying to say? Okay. So once you've answered that, the second question to the warm-up is this. What are some benefits and liabilities uh, that can occur in a country with people from all over the world in it? So what are some good things about it? What are some bad things about it? That we have all these people from around the world in our country. We're a melting pot, as they say. Um, what are some good things to it? What are some bad things to it? So think about it, write down your answer, and now remember, this is a part I was telling you guys last week, the very first week. The only way you could be wrong on this type of questions is if you don't answer, you copy off somebody else, or if your answer is so left field it makes no sense whatsoever. Okay, that's the only way you could really be wrong. Okay, again, I'm interested in wanting to know what you truly think. Okay, now I can really tell from reading this if you really put some effort into it, because if you just put I don't know, you're not going to get any points. Okay, so really try to answer these questions. All right, now on to the notes. So, early civilization in America. The thing is, no one knows exactly when somebody came, the first person came into this country. We know about Columbus, we know about other explorers and things like that. But for the Native Americans, the nomads, nobody knows exactly when the first person came. There's evidence, however, that the first person that come to our country was at least 10,000 years ago. We found some artifacts and things like that. Carbon dated it, things like that. But it was kind of actually around 15,000 to 30,000 years ago that people actually came because of the ice bridge, things like that. But it's just that we found evidence from 10,000 years ago. But in reality, more than likely, it was somewhere between 30 to 15,000 years ago. Okay. Now, like I said earlier, the people who came over were nomads. Now, nomads are people who don't have a home. They don't have a footing somewhere. They don't have roots. They basically follow the food, try to avoid the weather, things like that. So they have no permanent place. They're always constantly moving. Now, that's how they did it. That's how the theory is that they came to this country was between Russia and America was a thing called the ice bridge, as You kind of heard me say a little, a little bit ago. And people crossed it to come from Asia into this to our continent, to the American continent. So that explains why people came here. And the reason is to chase. They came after food. You know. Now the Native Americans started to learn how to do agricultural work. The farming, domesticated wild animals, storing food year round, things like that. This helped them settle. Instead of constantly chasing, they now had a way to, hey, you know what? We don't have to chase no more. If we grow our own food, if we make these animals, keep them, breed them, and we can have more and more and more, we can just stay here, you know. So that was key. That was key to survival, and that's starting a civilization. And that's when it really started. Once a group of people go from being nomads, from going around place to place, to finally putting a foothold and saying, "This is our home," that's civilization. That's when it truly starts. Okay, so continue with the early civilization. The earliest civilization in this North American continent was actually the Olmecs in southern Mexico, and they were between the 1500 BC and 1200 BC. Now, the thing is, they truly set down roots. They grew food. They had some type of government. They had structures, things like that. So they were truly the first. Okay, now there were others too afterwards. There was the Toltecs, and then later on there was the famous Aztecs and Mayans. The thing is, the Aztecs and Mayans kicked it up a notch because they built these impressive structures, civilizations, and they even had trade routes from their cities to other places with people they got along with. Okay, now news on how to cultivate and grow crops traveled quite well because you have to remember these places a lot of them were deserts. The Aztecs basically settled on an island in kind of a sense. Um, when later on you'll find this out, this explorer saw it, he was like, "Wow, this is like Venice." Basically a city built on top of a lake. Now the thing is, the Aztecs and the Mayans and the natives here in this country were seen to be by the European, they were seen as, you know, barbarians, because they didn't speak their language. They weren't, they didn't know their culture. They didn't know about Christianity, things like that. So they were seen as low people. But in reality, their technology, their intelligence, especially when it comes to structures, aqueducts, math, and astronomy, was just amazing. It was so advanced, that it baffled the Europeans when they came over. We'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, the thing is, they grew food and they had new techniques and things like that. So word spread along with the trade, you know. Um, Now, it got so done so well that one group in Arizona actually did the impossible, it seems like. The tribe was called I'm probably mispronouncing this, but it's the Hohokam. They learned the benefits from these techniques because they actually grew food in the desert, in the Arizona desert. They actually had fields. Now, there's a picture on the bottom, as you can see, and if you look, it's just like, wow, it's amazing. They actually grew crops in a desert. And if you ever been to Arizona, you know how that desert looks like. It's amazing, and sadly they kind of drifted off into history, but they accomplished an amazing feat. All right, so here is your midpoint question. Why do you think some groups in the North American continent decided to settle and then some decided to still live in a nomad style? Remember, I mean by nomad that they didn't settle, they moved around a lot. So why do you think some groups moved around and some said, you know what, I'm gonna settle here and grow crops and have raise animals and things like that? What are some possible reasonings? All right, now I have the writing prompt on the bottom there, and it starts off with I believe that some groups lived in a settlement because. Can you explain your reasoning? Why do you think? And I believe that some remain nomadic because why? Okay, let me know what you think. Okay, again, the three ways you can be wrong: you don't answer, you copy off somebody else, or if your answer is so left field it makes no sense. Okay, really try to answer these. All right, so while that was going on in the Americas, later on, what happened was people all across Europe, they couldn't get enough of the Persian, the Indian, and the Chinese items, you know, because the thing is, they had some stuff like spices, perfumes, jewels, silk. And the thing is, the Europeans couldn't get enough of it. They loved it. Now, the thing is, they couldn't do that stuff in Europe. They had to get it from China because China had a particular way of doing their silk. The spices only came from a certain part of India or Persia. And the thing is, they couldn't develop it. They couldn't make it there. So they had to get it from those countries. And because they had to send off for it, it's going to cost them money, right? Now, the thing is, the poor people, they couldn't really buy this stuff, but the rich, now they could, and they were willing to. So caravans, they sent off expeditions out. Uh, and the thing is, they were very, very profitable. Again, because rich people didn't mind spending, you know, let's say right now, like thousands of dollars on some spices or silks or jewelry, whatever, that was not in Europe, that they could not have, that they could not find or grow or make. So they didn't mind spending that much money, you know. Now, the thing is, there were some risks for these caravans, these groups that had bought all this stuff and are going from China, India, Persia back to Europe. A lot of times they got robbed, straight up got robbed, right? Then there was environmental problems, dust storms, heat, uh, just typhoons, whatever, avalanches, snow. I mean, you name it, it probably happened. And the other thing was trouble on the route. Let's say there was battle, civil war, fighting neighboring countries, or neighboring towns are blocking the routes. So sometimes they had to either go a long way around, maybe going through some other part of some mountain, some other path that wasn't really safe or good to avoid the fighting, or they would take their chance or go through it or wait. So it all depended. Now the thing is, Portugal, Spain, France, England, they tried their best to find the best way to go to Persia, India, and China. Now, the trade routes were one way, okay, by land. They even tried to go by sea, but the sea, they tried to find the quickest route. And a lot of them had to go all the way down and up around Africa to get to China and India and Persia. So as you can see on the map, um, you can see the blue lines is the sea route that they could have taken, but like as you see in Egypt, there's this little red section that's by land. So even by water, they had to go a certain distance. Now, if they went around Africa, you know, that's pure sea, route. But that's the way they did it. All right. The goal is now to find the quickest route. And basically, whoever finds that is going to make a buku amount of bucks.